Our executive committee meeting, November 9th, 2023, to order at 9:03 a.m. Good morning, and thank you for being here this morning. Let's do introductions and roll call. I don't know, John, if you want to do roll call, if you would like me to, or what you would like, or who's doing that. Usually Marcy does.
Yeah, if you don't mind, that would be great.
Yes, okay, thank you. Let's start with council staff. Melissa Van Hook, your chair. Vijette.
Good morning, Vijette. Sorry, family member.
Good morning. JJ?
Morning, everyone. JJ Rico, Vice Chair, also CEO for the Center for Disability Law. Soon to be Disability Rights Arizona. Better put that in there.
Ah, really? Okay. Good morning.
Right.
Oh, didn't know that. Monica?
Monica Cooper, council member, chair of the grants committee, self-advocate.
Thank you, Monica. And Jana?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Jana Merle, council member, chair of the Systems Access and Navigation Committee.
Well
Good
done.
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. And Kathy?
Good morning, Kathy Lewandowski, Chair of the Work Plan Committee.
All right. Thank you so much. Staff, Mike?
Good morning, Mike Leba, staff member and
Thank you.
contracts and grants coordinator.
Thank you. Lonnie?
Lonnie St. Cyr, fiscal manager. Good morning.
Thank you. And John?
John Myers, Executive Director.
Thank you, sir, our illustrious leader. Okay, all right. Moving on to agenda item B, the minutes review and approval from our September 15th, 2023 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? I'm hoping. Does anybody have any changes, comments, or corrections to the meeting minutes?
Nope, I don't.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none, I'm going to call for a motion to approve the meeting minutes for Executive Committee September 15th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved. This is JJ.
Thank you, JJ. Do I have a second?
I second. This is Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Hi.
All those opposed, please say nay. And anyone abstaining? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. All right, agenda item C, our fiscal and contract update with Lonnie.
John, did you want to present?
I will be happy to do that.
Or I could do it now, I think. We'll see. I don't know what it's doing. You were just sharing, so.
Yeah, I've got it right here.
Okay.
Whoops. There we go.
Okay. Thank you. So for the fiscal update, the council has fully spent the fiscal year 2021 award of $1,535,342. ACL granted a one-year no-cost extension for these funds. The extension made the new obligation and project period through September of this year. This allowed an additional year for the work to be completed. The council actually has until September 31st of this year to liquidate the funds, but we've already met that deadline. So we're good to go for fiscal year 2021. The council has received the full allotment for fiscal year 2022 in the amount of $1,500,930. This is level funding with 2021, excluding the Puerto Rico reallotment of $34,412. The council has requested and ACL has granted a no-cost extension for fiscal year 2022. This extends the project period through September 30th of next year. The council has fully obligated these funds and will need to complete the work by September 2024. There's approximately $157,881 remaining to be liquidated. The council has received a third allotment for fiscal year 2023 funding in the amount of $398. This brings the current funding for fiscal year 2023 to $1,501,328. There's approximately 41,109 remaining to be obligated. The obligation and period of performance requirements are both through September 30th of next year, with the final report being due by September 30th, 2025. And also the council has received the first allotment for fiscal year funding of for 2024 in the amount of $196,284. The obligation and project periods are through September 30th of 2025, and the final report will be due September 30th of 2026. Any questions on this sheet?
Hey, Lonnie, this is Kathy. I was just wondering for 22, the 157,000, is that just a mixture of different projects that we're still working on, or is it one specific project that we need to expend 157,000?
Oh, this is various different contracts that are still, sending in their final invoicing.
Okay.
The major project that we requested the extension for was the Sonoran, you said, refugee research project. They were extended through December of this year. So they don't plan on having their work done until December. And so final invoicing will come in even later for them. But the approval extension, no cost extension letter that we were granted from ACL doesn't specify that project in particular. So yeah, it's a combination of various projects just needing to get their final invoicing in, which is due next week. So for all the contracts that ended September 30th, final invoicing is due by November 15th, 45 days after the contract period ends.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And some invoices have been processed but hadn't hit the system when this has been completed. So yeah, it's always kind of a moving target.
Yeah. Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions?
Lonnie, this is JJ, and maybe it's something John will report on, obviously, with the possible shutdown again next Friday. Just kind of curious. Not hearing, any potential impact on the council, but if there is one, or, if that's you or John that could share, how that might affect, just so that others hear, the shutdown. What does that mean for the council?
What do you mean by shutdown?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the federal government has not passed a full year budget. That's why Lonnie's presentation of the 24 numbers is so small in terms of amount. So if they don't pass a budget on next Friday, it's considered a shutdown because there's no money to operate. So then some agencies, federal agencies, their staff may not go to work. The way that it impacts our office at ACDL is that we don't have a program officer, someone in DC that we can call if they're not going to work. So that's how I describe a shutdown, but it may not impact us. That's my question. Will it impact the council? And I assume it will, but we will continue to operate. But hopefully that makes sense, Monica.
It does.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So JJ, with some historical kind of shutdowns or pauses, it really hasn't affected our operations too much. Technically, council staff are considered state employees. So it becomes more of an issue if there's like a state budgetary issue. Like you said, we probably won't have access to anyone from ACL or NACDD. But again, all of our funding, we tend to already have it in place. So we're not waiting for that next round of funding in order to operate. So we're able to continue to work and operate as we usually do.
Great. Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions? Okay, that's it for this sheet. Okay, The next sheet is our additional COVID awards. The council has received an additional award in the amount of $84,288 for COVID-19 specific projects. These funds are being tracked and reported on separately. ACL had also granted a 1-year no-cost extension for using these funds. So the funds needed to be obligated and the work completed by September 30th of 2023. To date, we've spent $77,867 and had another $5,496 encumbered through September. We're still waiting on that final invoice for the award that was granted to NAU IHD for the project to better understand the lived experiences of people with disabilities throughout the pandemic, including barriers to health services such as awareness and access to the COVID-19 vaccine. So for all intents and purposes, this funding is done. It just needs final invoicing and to be reported on. The next set of funding, expanding the public health workforce within the disability network. We received an additional award in the amount of $95,319. The funds will also be tracked and reported on separately. The obligation and project period are through September 30th of 2024, so next year. The contract for this project has been awarded and the funds are encumbered. However, the council has not received any invoices for this project yet, so nothing really to report on here for me. And that's it for this sheet. Okay. The next one, this is just all of our current projects. All of the proposals that were voted on at the last full council meeting have been added to the sheet. We are following up with and expecting final invoices for all the projects that ended on September 30th. These invoices are due by November 15th. Or 45 days after the contract end date. And if John scrolls down a little bit, you can see a lot of our projects ended in September. So yeah, still waiting on some of those final invoices. Any questions on this sheet?
Lonnie, this is Kathy. So the funding for these projects, it's the 23 funding?
No, most of them are 22, some is 23. And again, some of them are split between the 2 different years. So yeah, it's not a straightforward thing.
Yeah.
And even with the next sheet, which I think we're maybe ready to move on to, it's kind of broken out per year per project. But it's really not a true reflection. It gives you the best kind of idea of how the various projects are broken out by fiscal year. But again, there are times when certain projects are being funded with different grant year money, if that makes sense. And that allows us to fully expend. So let's say this first one with the ARC, that they weren't able to spend their full award amount. We don't want that money to just be reverted back to the feds. We then take funding from a different year or a different project, and then we make it to where the funds are spent wherever the money is available and needs to be spent, if that makes sense. So this gives you a good idea of where things are, but it's not truly an accurate depiction, if that makes sense. It was kind of what we had budgeted and planned for, but to make things operationally work.
Yeah.
No, I'm not trying to be misleading or show something that's inaccurate.
No,
but
no.
Again,
No.
it's always kind of changing, and in order to fully spend, things need to be shifted, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. You don't want to give any money back if you don't have to, and if you have a need for it someplace else, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not trying to be deceptive with any of these document guys. But again, please know that it is kind of a moving target. We're still waiting on final invoicing, so things may need to shift depending on whether or not they've fully spent their funds or their award amount. So with that, this sheet reflects the projects that were outlined in the fiscal year 2024 work plan, as well as the funding that has already been approved for prior years. The column for fiscal year 2021 funds has been removed because we've fully spent that grant award. And for fiscal year 2024, that estimated column has been added. For the fiscal year 2024 funds, we will primarily be using these for projects to be decided on for fiscal year 2025 work plan. So again, just know that when we're working on 24 projects, we're primarily spending fiscal year 23 funds. So there's always kind of the delay. The first year for any of our grant funding, the first year is generally when we try to obligate those funds. So in the second year, the work is being done. And the third year is when we collect those final invoices and make sure everything's spent. So for fiscal year 23, we're looking at work plan 24 projects. For fiscal year 24, we're looking at fiscal year 25 work plan projects. Does that make sense?
Yes.
A one for one type of relationship. So, and federal fiscal year 25 work plans haven't been completely finalized yet. So everything that's kind of in that fiscal year 24 column is just kind of an estimate. And as we work with Kathy's work plan group and flush out some of what they want to do and finalize that final work plan, this will look a little bit cleaner. But it does have some new projects in there. Not everything has a dollar amount tied to it yet. So that's going to be something to be discussed further with the work plan committee. And I believe the next time we're going to meet is early January to kind of flush a lot of the estimated fiscal year 24 budget out. Any questions on this sheet?
Can I ask one other question? On your, in the second column where you have like policy underrepresented, the under objective, the italicized unallocated word, the italicized word unallocated, that doesn't go with the word above program admin, right? So program admin is the 90,000. But unallocated, it's blank over there, and that means because there's no unallocated funds. Is that how that works?
Correct. As John had scrolled down to the bottom, there's about $30,000 that's showing as unallocated. But again, we haven't identified where those unallocated funds should be. So that could be another discussion for the work plan committee. But again, there are some other projects that are kind of in discussion. A pretty large system, data tracking system is something that we've been looking at internally, and that could potentially eat up that 30,728. So there are some internal discussions that I don't think are ready to be shared yet. I don't know, John. I don't know what's been discussed regarding what we're planning with Qualtrics or anything else.
Yeah, I don't. We're not at a point where we really have anything concrete to share, so I think it would be premature to try and throw that on the agenda. But we will have some details fairly soon, and we'll be able to share that at our next meeting.
Okay.
So there are some plans in the works, and anything that's showing as unallocated, we do kind of have some idea as to what we'd like to do with them and discussions to be had. But again, if there's something pressing or that needs to be moved forward, there is some flexibility there. So if there's like an emerging pressing matter that the council needs to address, there are some funds available for that.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. Thank you for answering them, though.
No worries. Just know that it does take us quite a while to put contracts in place. So expecting any kind of immediate results isn't necessarily realistic with how the council and kind of how DES, who we work through, works, if that makes sense too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kathy's familiar.
Yeah.
And that's it for me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lonnie, and thanks, guys, for the good questions in that. Okay, agenda item D, our executive director report. You're up, John.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to add a little more context related to the COVID-19 public health workforce funding. Just give you an update on where that project stands. As Lonnie mentioned, that is a project that received some special funding from the federal government, and we are on contract with the Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities, which is actually acting as the fiscal agent or the pass-through for the Regional Center for Border Health in Yuma. The regional center is doing a series of focus groups and interviews related to interactions between the aging IDD community and the public health systems that support that community. As of October 24th, which is the most recent report I've gotten, there had been 5 focus groups conducted. 2 of them were in Somerton in the Yuma area, 1 in Parker, 1 in Flagstaff, and 1 in Avondale. The groups in Somerton were conducted fully in Spanish, and the Avondale group was conducted in Spanish and English. The others were all in English. There are plans to hold focus groups in Phoenix and Tucson. The Phoenix events were scheduled but had to be rescheduled, so the group in the regional center is working on rescheduling those, and I believe in Tucson they are still looking for a venue to host the focus group down there. I would point out that obviously with the regional center being located in Yuma, traveling to all of these other far-flung areas of the state is a little difficult. So what they are doing is partnering with their sister agencies, their sister regional centers in other parts of the state to conduct those interviews with a member of the Yuma staff present for them, but not the entire contingent of staff who are working on the project. So that project has a completion date of December 31st of this year. Once again, as I've mentioned in the past, the intent is to learn as much as possible about how the public health system interacts with people with IDD who are aging. And by that, we're talking about people who are in their 50s or older. And then from that, develop a set of findings and ultimately a set of recommendations that can relate to policy about public health systems serving people with IDD. And the System Access and Navigation Committee in particular is going to take on the task of utilizing whatever recommendations come out of this work and then developing policy statements or policy objectives that we would pursue as a council. This may entail some additional funding in the future, but at this point, we don't know exactly what that would look like. This is a project that Mary Slaughter continues to be very heavily invested in, and she will continue to be involved as so long as she is on the council. And even she has indicated when she steps down from the council. So we're excited to learn what we can learn and excited to see what progress we can make on this front. It is a growing issue. As we all know, the IDD community, the IDD population is aging and more people are living far longer than they used to, but our system has not really kept pace with that. And we want to make sure that quality of life and services to those individuals can be maintained even in their later years. So more information to come as we get closer to completion of that project. Also wanted to update you all on the status of our search for a new communications director. As you're all aware, Steve Freeman resigned from his position effective September 29th. We have done some work to update the position description somewhat, and I included a copy of the newly approved position description along with the other documents that were posted for this meeting. I did have an indication that we were going to be able to post that position last week, And then it turned out that HR said it needed another level of approval. So we're waiting for the final signature on that. As soon as we have that, we will be posting the position. I'm a little disappointed that it has taken quite as long as it has, but I still have confidence that we're going to be able to find a person with the skills and the abilities and the knowledge of the community that we're looking for, and hopefully we'll have that person in place. If not at the first of the new calendar year, then certainly not long after that. Kathy, question?
In your position title on the class action request, it says community relations liaison. So
Yeah.
is it just, it's both, or?
Well, internally we call that position the communications director, him or her. By state standards, and we have to follow, all of the state's HR policies. That position is called a community relations liaison. So, it's six of one, half dozen of the other. We're able to use the title we want to use for the person in all of our communications, but the state will continue to consider that person, excuse me, a community relations liaison. It turns out actually that each one of us who's on staff, my title is executive director, but that's not the title the state uses for me. Lonnie's title is different from what we typically call her. Same with Jason. Same with Mike. We make up the title we want for our interactions with other people, but the state classifies us as something else.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure. With regard to council vacancies, and I'm a broken record when it comes to this. We continue to have a pretty fair number of council vacancies or positions that need reappointment. All of the individuals who should be filling mandated slots, that is for positions representing Access, ADHS, the Department of Education, we have about 7 or 8 of those positions. All but the Department of Education slot applications have been submitted. For all of the reappointments, and folks know who they are, who are up for reappointment, all of those applications have been submitted. The problem is that there have been some challenges in the Office of Boards and Commissions. There was a director appointed early in the new administration, and that person, I had a number of conversations with that person. We didn't seem to get any progress on these appointments and reappointments. There is now a new interim director at the Office of Boards and Commissions. I've had conversations with the new the new staff there. I've even pulled in the governor's human services policy advisor to try and get things moving forward. And as of late last week, I was given an indication that they are making this a priority. Whether that's true or not, I'm a little skeptical, because there are 200 plus boards and commissions in Arizona, and this rather small office is responsible for appointing all of the members of all of those boards and commissions. I will continue to be vigilant about trying to get some movement on this. The great thing is that those members who are up for reappointments are able to continue serving until that reappointment comes through, according to our executive order. So there's no issue there. The problem is that we do want full representation from the state agencies that are mandated to be represented on the council. And at this point, we have an ADE position that's open. We have an ADHS position that's open. We have an Access position that's open. All of those are important to us. They all bring important perspectives to the council, and we're not getting those filled as quickly as we would like. So I don't have a whole lot of new news to tell you, except that there is new leadership in place there, and I am staying in contact with them, and we're hoping that that we're going to see some movement in the very near future. Any questions related to that? Okay. I wanted to just update on a couple of new IDD service system updates. In case you're not familiar with things that have been going on lately, there's a lot of work being done by DDD, by Access, to establish some changes really within the DD service system. One of the key changes, and you may be familiar with this, throughout the pandemic, there was a flexibility added to our Medicaid waiver, allowing parents of minor age children to be paid to be the caregivers to provide habilitation and attendant care for their minor age children. That was not a policy that was in place prior to the pandemic, but because of the caregiver shortage that the system experienced, there was really no other way to ensure that children were going to be able to get the attendant care or the habilitation they needed, because providers were losing staff, families were not allowing outside individuals to come into their homes for fear of their children or themselves getting sick. So a whole host of problems. So the state got a waiver, a waiver of flexibility that would allow them to pay parents who had to go through training, who had to become as qualified as provider staff, and in fact had to be employed by a provider agency to provide that kind of care for their children. It was such a popular program that a group of parents got together and advocated for extension of this program, actually permanent extension of this program. The state ultimately conceded on this. There was some resistance at first. Access and DDD both objected. They didn't really want this program to be put into place permanently. But there was enough of an outcry from the provider community who needed that additional staff assistance, and from the parents, that ultimately Access put in an application for a permanent waiver, and that was preliminarily granted last week. So that program, it looks like, will fairly seamlessly just continue for as long as we can imagine. It was being supported with some additional ARPA money. That ARPA money is going to go away, but it looks like the program is just going to continue without any interruption, with or without the ARPA money. It is, as you can imagine, many parents are very pleased with this. They think actually that their children are thriving in ways that they weren't thriving when they were working with outside personnel. It's also important to point out that this is not allowing parents to provide all services to their children. Again, it's only habilitation, only attendant care. Other therapies, other services will still have to be provided by other individuals. And there is a limit on the number of hours that parents can provide and be paid for in service to their children. It's 40 hours per week. So there was a compromise, but this program is likely to continue well into the future, and it will simply be paid for with the regular Medicaid dollars that pay for the DD service system. Another thing I wanted to point out is that Access and DDD are working to determine whether or not a program called START is an appropriate program to bring in the state to improve the behavioral health services to people with IDD in the state. START is an acronym, and I apologize, I don't know what the letters stand for, but it is a program that is operated by the USED at the University of New Hampshire. It's been used in a number of other states. Idaho uses it. Several other states have used it. There was an initial presentation a couple of months ago, another presentation about a month ago, and now a survey has been distributed to determine whether family members, providers, other professionals around the state think it is an appropriate model to bring to Arizona. That the survey results have not been issued yet. It's kind of a mixed bag of sentiment, according to the people that I've talked to. Some people don't see it as being terribly appropriate to Arizona's circumstances. Some people think it would be a benefit. We'll have to wait and see what the results are when the survey is completed. But just know that the state is appearing to take some action related to the provision of behavioral health services, and in particular crisis services. Now, this is something that we, of course, have been working on for quite a long time. We have a behavioral health and crisis response committee. We have a core group that is working to conduct its own survey, and I'm going to allow Melissa to talk a little bit about that in just a moment. But in the event that the START program is not one that gets brought to Arizona, we still need to be working. In fact, even if the START program is brought to Arizona, we still need to be working outside of that to address the issues and the shortcomings of the system related to behavioral health for people with IDD. So I'll update you more, and you may be getting those updates yourselves, but I'll have more information as that proceeds, and try and give you an update on where it stands and what's going to be done by the state. The last thing I want to mention is that the state is about to institute a whole series of positive behavior supports trainings for for provider staff and DDD staff, as well as for parents and other caregivers. They're two separate forms of training, but these have been in development for the better part of 9 months, I think. Leah Gibbs at DDD is leading that effort. A lot of work has been done. They're very excited. I think January 24th is when they plan to launch the program. It's going to start out as a train the trainer program, and then they're going to do a series of in-person and online events for parents and other caregivers. And the hope is that these will provide some new means of supporting individuals who have behavioral health diagnoses as well as an IDD diagnosis. More information will be available. There are a whole lot of details right now, but I was on a call with Zane Garcia Ramadan from DDD and Leah Gibbs from DDD last week, and they provided kind of a skeleton of what it's going to look like. Again, January 24th is when this is likely to be launched, and more information will be provided prior to that launch date. A corollary to that is that Access and DDD are working to host two-day training conferences for behavioral health clinical staff, one in April of next year, one in September of next year. One of those trainings will be done in Tucson, one will be done somewhere here in the Valley. There's even less detail available on those than there is on the PBS trainings, but DDD and Access are looking for volunteers to serve on the planning committee for those two events. So I'm going to be sharing information for anybody who's interested in potentially serving. They're also looking for input on topics to be addressed. Again, those 2-day trainings are specifically for clinical staff, for behavioral health providers, not for the general caregiver population or for the provider population. But I'll get more information out to everybody on that, and hopefully, if you're interested, hopefully you'll have a chance to contribute to the planning or at least the agenda topics for those two events. Finally, I included a copy of the draft of our full council agenda for next week, along with the documents for today, just to give you a sense of what the agenda is going to look like and take any input that you want to provide on that. I would especially note November is Native American Heritage Month. We've asked Therese Yannon from the Native American Disability Law Center to do a presentation on NADLAC's activities, on ways that the Native American Center works with ACDL, soon to be Disability Rights Arizona, as JJ pointed out, and other activities that the Native American Center is undertaking to serve American Indian communities around the state of Arizona and in the Four Corners region. As you know, support for American Indian communities, Native American causes is very important to us. As a council, we're supporting the Native Center at the University of Arizona, and we want to maintain a very strong partnership with the Native American Disability Law Center. Therese, I know, has presented in the past, and she's going to provide some updated information on things that NADLAC has done. And I think it's going to be a very interesting presentation. So if you have any other comments on the agenda, I'd certainly be willing to hear them. And if you have any questions on anything I've shared, thank you for your patience as I went through all that stuff. Happy to take any questions you might have.
John, it's Kathy. I just want to thank you guys for having the Native American presentation during this important month. So thank you for that. I
Absolutely.
think it's a nice recognition. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you so much, John. A lot of information there. Okay, item E, our Behavioral Health and Crisis Response Survey. So Jason, I noticed, is all with us now too. Hi, Jason. Good to see your icon up there. And John, so the three of us work with our core group on that, specifically with the 3 council members involved. So we've been working with Noble, is it Predictive Insights? I never know if it's that or Noble Insights, but basically on the survey. So John and Jason and I had met with them, taken info from our core group on what we wanted on that survey, and they created a survey. And of course, it's what they do for a living. And, you know, they added and changed a lot of things. And when we sent the script to our core group, we had a number that weren't happy with it. they some of the issues we're trying to iron out. They want more plain language, and they do need to definitely make it a little bit more readable. I don't feel like it's bad, but it's not what we would consider plain language. And considering our audience for that survey is specifically people with IDD and their families that have used, will use, or would like to use the behavioral health and crisis system in general. We're not surveying providers or DED staff, law enforcement. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose of this survey is really to get feedback from the community of those individuals and families directly impacted, and kind of see what their challenges have been, what's working, what's not working. So yeah, we have some work to do on that. It's okay. We had hoped to have that done by the end of the year or shortly thereafter, the survey results themselves. But for two reasons, it's going to take a little bit longer to hammer out that survey with exactly the information that we need. So I think that's going to involve another meeting with our core group and the team from Noble Predictive Insights, or Noble Insights. Which is it, John? Is it Noble Insights?
It is Noble Predictive Insights.
It is the longer title. Okay. I know there were two, and OHI merged and whatever. So that we've got. And then while they have been an approved contracted vendor with the state, there's some things going on with that. What's going on, John? Do you want to share that part of it?
Yeah, it's really kind of a bureaucratic thing. Their state contract expires November 11th, Saturday, and they were because of the institution of a new financial management system, and Lonnie knows much more about this than I do, but there's a new contracting and financial management system being put in place by the state. And so there were some delays in issuing renewals of state contracts. Noble was provided an email message from the Department of Administration saying that their contract would be extended temporarily to allow for institution of this new system, but they haven't gotten an official letter from DOA. So until they have that, DES is not willing to issue a contract for us to undertake this work. So we're waiting for that official acknowledgement to come out, and until it does, we're kind of in a holding pattern.
And maybe, and honestly, hopefully they'll resolve that soon, but maybe it's perhaps not such a bad thing considering we've still got some work to do on the survey itself before it goes out. So, maybe not a bad thing. And if you guys want to add anything to that, please do. But I wanted to mention, it is amazing to me how all of a sudden, with Access doing their survey, and I think there's 2 or 3 others out, or one that's been done, all of a sudden, out of the blue, there's all these different behavioral health surveys, right? I think we all know that pandemic and lockdown, like while this should have always been a priority, behavioral health issues in general and mental health and wellness, I think that probably pandemic and people suffering in general made this much more an acceptable topic to talk about. It has very much become at the forefront. Unless you live under a rock, you see the ads on TV, the commercials, all the news stories, all the stuff that they're doing in general, the rollout of the 988 crisis line. But it's interesting to me that now, specific to IDD, there are a number of surveys that are being conducted. I think because maybe those in the system, Access and DDD, et cetera, are maybe going, okay, maybe we have a problem. Maybe we're not doing a great job, but maybe not. Maybe that's just my optimism. John or Jason, do you want to add anything about what we're doing with that survey?
Actually, you did a pretty good job, so I'm fine.
Thank you. Thanks, Jason.
The only thing I would add in, if I could put JJ on the spot just a little bit, as Melissa mentioned, there are a lot of things going on around behavioral health in the IDD community, and for those who aren't familiar, ACDL has a contract with the state to do monitoring of behavioral supported group homes, and group homes where individuals with a dual diagnosis reside. And I'm wondering, JJ, if you have any thoughts on how, and again, I don't know how the results of your findings are going to be shared, but I wonder if you have any thoughts on how what ACDL is learning can contribute to the work that we're trying to do, both as part of the survey and over the longer term to make sure needs are met in the community.
Sure. So So our project is, a result of Hacienda 3 years ago, and then obviously a state statute that passed. And as John said, a component of that is monitoring group homes that have folks that they label as complex needs, which is essentially someone who's duly diagnosed, and then investigations of quality care complaints, those that we choose. So far, and I'm happy to invite our program manager to come and either give a presentation or to either the whole council or to this committee so that we can see how we can work, because we want to share this information. So that's the easy question to answer. The requirement for statute is that we report out once a year. We'd like to report out more frequently, and we have monthly meetings with the state. We're seeing, a lot of what we knew we would see, inadequate documentation, medication errors. We're seeing, abuse and neglect of different forms, some severe, some less severe, but still things where people aren't necessarily being identified. One of the most glaring, which is not, I guess was shocking, that this list of folks we were supposed to see is not always accurate. And so there's a group of people we cannot even track down because of the information the state's given us, which is concerning, right? So if the state is supposed to be knowing where and someone lives and they can't verify that address, or the address they give is not accurate, how are they even monitoring them if we're not able to monitor them? So I do think there's a way that we can share this information with you all. There's nothing confidential like in statute that says we can't disclose to other folks. I mean, obviously it's going to be generic in terms of, no names, those kind of things, no specifics, but in terms of group home, exactly. But incidents, types of abuse, types of neglect, when we're looking at their plan, sometimes the plans are incomplete or they're not consistently followed. It looks great on paper, but we don't see that at the home. So we've been able to, and since May to now, have achieved about half of what we wanted to do this year. We're hoping to get a little bit of extension on the monitoring because of the delay in the start. But yeah, again, let me know if you guys want a presentation as council as a whole, or our manager and coordinator could present to the subcommittee, and then maybe first there you all could decide how we could kind of put our two projects together, and then kind of send it all up to the state maybe at once, so it's further information. So just for example, a little off topic, like APS report, I know John's going to attend a meeting along with one of our staff attorneys. We are also auditing APS, so we're hoping that we can dovetail our anecdotal narratives with people into the more number-based audits. So if there's a way we could do that also with our committee here on the council with what we call the commit project at ACDL, we're happy to do that.
JJ, I absolutely would want you to come into executive committee, but for the sake of you guys not being hammered, I'm not sure why it wouldn't be appropriate for you to come in and present to full council, because I think that really is such an important topic, and we're all concerned about it. But full council, I think, would really be ideal. I'm not sure what our January meeting agenda looks like. Maybe that would be, give you guys a couple more months. So if you guys or whoever would come in, your program director, project director, would be able to come in and present for January. And John, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, our year runs through the end of December 31st, so we'd be completed with year one. We wouldn't have a final report, but we'd have preliminary numbers, because then we have to send it over to the state within a month or so time. But it would be near final, so I would feel comfortable, and I could talk to the manager and coordinator, so long as John and the council approve that to be added to the agenda, and then just let us know kind of how in depth, or if we do have a full report at that point, obviously we could walk through that, and that would be the same information the state would receive.
Okay, we would just approve it on our executive committee 2 weeks prior to that meeting. So let's plan on it if you're available to do that. I know you're on the phone, but John has been nodding furiously that yes, you need to come in, and some thumbs up on the call. Jana has got a comment for you, a question.
Sure,
JJ,
Jana.
how are they missing folks when there's the requirements to meet every 90 days? Yikes.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, obviously I'm not trying to minimize any of the other harms we're experiencing, but the fact that I think it's about 18 of the 100, and the way we split it up was there's approximately 450 homes, individuals that we were to monitor, and we split it up in thirds. And so of this first third, about I think it's 18 so far, we haven't been able to identify. The other issue we're having is the state needs to help us out a little bit too, because we have some group homes and providers who are refusing us access. And this is different than our P&A access. This is per state statute. So we're not trying to throw that away. And the state's been clear that, your roles as the state contractor. And so we're trying to respect that. But at the same time, we need the state to make a phone call and say, you need to open your doors and let this agency in to do their job under the statute. So there are some of those challenges also with a new monitor, new set of eyes. I think some providers are not either educated about who we are or resistant to letting another folks look inside their doors.
That is really, really disturbing, because I'm sure you're well aware of the DCS report or the news story that came out, I don't know, I think about a month ago, about children in the system and the foster system that were missing. And the same thing. And I know that those of us in particular on the Behavioral Health Committee have become aware of some instances of, families that have reached out to Cynthia McCluskey of somebody, one of their family members that, was a DDD member, transferred into a group home, moved from one location to another. Nobody knew where this kid was,
Right.
This young adult, including the family. Nobody knew. And so I'm kind of horrified, because those stories are far more common than we would expect. And I don't know. I mean, when you are all done with this report, will not just data, but will there be recommendations on what they need to do a better job?
Yes, and we're starting to do that now. I mean, I talked with the RA manager, and like I said, we have monthly meetings with the administrators within that oversee the programs and giving recommendations. Now, unfortunately, the statute as it's written right now, we can make recommendations. There's no problem with that. We're consistently doing it. We're hoping the state would update. If they don't update or change or improve, obviously that will be noted in the report as well. But we don't have any enforcement at this point. So it's something that I, as a CEO, have to think about. Do we go back to the legislature and say, either expand the program, change the program year 2, year 3, with some enforcement? Because without that, we're kind of saying, here's what we found, state, do with it what you want. And then if they do something, great. If they don't do anything, the person's still where they were, in the same situation that they are. So, I mean, we knew that was going to be a particular challenge, but we hope that, the information that would come out would further the state into taking action. And then if they don't, then hopefully we have the support of the legislators that push this legislation to either expand, enhance, change, or make us, more of an enforcement agency than an auditor.
Okay, thank you, JJ. That's a little disturbing. Anybody have any comments or questions for JJ or me or John or Jason?
This is Kathy. My comment is that whatever the state does to a contractor, it will be based on what is in the contract. So if you get a chance to look at the contract for that contractor, you might be able to see whether the state will have any ability to do anything, based on your findings. Because
Right.
maybe the contract doesn't allow them to do anything, because there
Right.
isn't anything.
Yeah,
in
no,
it.
I appreciate that, Kathy, and we know that that's going to be part of it with our investigations. Obviously, if there's right now, the investigations is independent of the state, and the state does their own and has their own information. We do our own, and I think there's got to be more of a partnership as well. But we'll look at that, because obviously after we make recommendations and touch the state, in terms of telling them what we see and what we recommend, we can continue to follow up and report if the state doesn't do anything, and connect, obviously if we see something like an overdose of a medication, for example, the state does nothing to correct it, that's going to be highlighted, because I think, you have someone telling you, one of the arguments always was, well, we don't have, someone, it's a person with a disability, or it's a family member complaining, and either they're untruthful or we can't get a statement from them. And we're trying to eliminate that argument by having the second set of eyes and actually interviewing, the individual wherever they're at. We're finding, that's, particularly challenging, but is the state missing that, right? We're being flexible and interviewing at night, at day programs, once they get home after a day, et cetera. And we want to really see, is the state doing that? Or are they like, hey, we showed up, they weren't there, things looked good and we left. So, we're trying all angles, but I appreciate that. I'll talk to our manager, make sure we're following up and looking at licenses and other, ways that we can see if the state's done anything.
Yeah, and if anything, there might be some recommendations coming out of your report for future contracts that this needs to have some kind of, other stuff that you've seen, in order to be able to come back and say, per your contract, you didn't do this.
Right. No, that's a good idea. Thank you for that.
Jana, I noticed your comment in there. Do you want to say that comment yourself? And I do agree with you, by the way, down the road.
No, I was just thinking, JJ, as you were talking and, just hearing that your role, perhaps if we can't get you guys more teeth to be able to enforce, not just monitor, then it needs to go to the media, some of those findings, that's just terrifying.
Yeah. And I think everything is going to be on the table. There's nothing that stops us from doing that. I think that, our role not only in this program, but as a P&A is to do that. And, a lot of P&As, again, I know this isn't a P&A program, but the models are to issue public reports. And I really want to start doing that, not only in this instance, but also for our others. So that's something I'm working with our staff to try to release, like our APS report, other, monitorings that we're doing. We're, investigating, looking at some of the jails that have high incidence of death or suicide. So we want to get that information out. I'll just speak bluntly. I mean, we know Arizona's commended for being a home and community-based state, but that doesn't mean we're without room for improvement. And so I really, our goal is to, highlight what needs to be improved and how to improve that. So I'm hoping this program does that and some of our others. So stay tuned. But yeah, this first year ends December 31st. So presenting in January is most definitely an option. And I think DDPC and those we represent are the audience we need to get the information to.
Well, plan on it for January, okay? I think
Okay.
it's really, really important, and the full council needs to hear that. So thank you so much, JJ.
Sounds
Okay, any other questions or comments? John or Jason, you got anything? Okay, thank you so much. This is a topic near and dear. Kathy, did you have anything? Are you good?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. You're welcome. So we'll keep you posted on where we're going. And speaking of, we will end this meeting very early today, but John and Jason, if you can stay on after for just a couple minutes, I wanted to talk to you about that survey real quick. Okay. Agenda item F, does anybody have any announcements they would like to make? Yes, JJ.
So I said earlier, soon to be Disability Rights Arizona. So I just want to let you all know that we are officially in Arizona's Corporation Commission Disability Rights Arizona, but we're doing a transition over the next 3 months. Reason for it is of the 57 protection advocacy agencies, there's approximately 45 to 50, don't quote me on that are disability rights in their state name. And so we're trying to be kind of cohesive and the same across state lines and territories. So that's the reason. Our logo is going to largely stay the same. So not much is going to change but our name. No services change, funding source. So we're still the P&A. But we wanted to kind of be unified with our fellow states and territories that are now disability rights, and our national office is the National Disability Rights Network. So trying to just have that common message. So when you think about disability rights, you can go from one state to the next and find our offices. So thank you.
Got it. Thank you for explaining that. Jana, go right ahead.
To follow what JJ is saying, actually, I'll give everyone a little bit of a heads up. Be on the watch. We are Raising Special Kids. We are going to be changing our name as well. It will probably take about 8 or 9 months to go through the process, but we have engaged with an organization to help us identify a new name. We did some work with some self-advocates and youth advisors to kind of take a second look at the name Raising Special Kids. And we learned a lot about the concern among the disability community about the term special. And so we want to be sensitive and honoring of that. And so be on the watch. We'll be making an announcement probably after the first of the year about what our name will be. I wish I could share some of the ideas with you, but unfortunately I've been given the cone of silence. So but just a heads up to be on the lookout for that. I'm excited. It's going to be great.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, looking forward to hearing more. Interesting, very interesting. Okay, anybody else have any announcements? Okay, I was going to change my name to Queen of Everything, but that just seemed a little much. So, you know. All right, I will just stay Melissa Van Hook, the PETA. That's it. That's me. So, thank you. All right. Agenda item G, call to the public. I don't note any public on here, so if you're hiding, come out. Okay, moving on. Item H, guys. Thank you for your time today. I am going to get you out of here almost 30 minutes early, 26 minutes. And Jason and John, if you can hang for a few, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great Veterans Day. And remembrance.
Bye. You too.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Whoops.
Hello, hello, hello. Hi there. Well, good. Thank you. Short and sweet.